So I'll go back to the poem, verse 53. Then comes the great son of Odin, Vidar, to fight, to avenge his father on the wolf. He shoves his sword into the mouth of Fenrir all the way to the heart, and thus is Odin avenged.
Isn't that a good one? An epic.
Definitely.
Epic little thing there. Fantastic. Well, what else is this other than you know the next generation taking over, right? Like, I think it has to be said here that Odin died knowing that he would weaken the wolf enough to be overcome by his son, something like that. You know, like as the previous generation is about to end, to fall, whatever, they've still done enough, and it maybe that's something, empowered their children enough to be able to take on the challenges that they weren't able to grasp, to handle, right? And it's not like Odin didn't try, right, as we discussed there, but it's like it's that he sets the stage and he sets Vidar up to be able to succeed where he literally died. Like that's another powerful one.
Definitely. So, as is my habit, Vidar, the name means wide ruler. And so that really, I think it speaks to what you're saying, that Vidar is the son of Odin, who was the All-Father, and has that authority over civilization, as it were, and avenges his father. So he reestablishes, or at least able to get rid of, the disorder that is seen within Fenrir, and kill it. And it's something about, so archetypally, civilization is seen as the father. I think we've talked about this a bit.
Yeah.
And so it then becomes the duty of the son to carry on and, I guess, resurrect the father, but I don't necessarily think that means like actually bring Odin back or bring the former civilization back. I think it means reintroduce the values that the previous civilization had and build upon it. And because you do have to evolve, and if you remain stagnant, you die. And I think we see the transition here perfectly, is that Vidar steps right in to take care of the disorder, and he's the wide ruler, and there's no animosity towards Odin. He has a great love for Odin. That's why he's avenging him. But then he's the wide ruler, and we'll see that as things sort of wind down in Ragnarok and what happens after that. But it just really makes me think about, this is sort of the proper, maybe proper isn't the best word, but the right plan of succession for civilization, so that you don't just throw out everything that came before you, because there's absolute value in that, in what came before you, because it made you. But it is your responsibility to then take what came before you and bring it into the future with whatever added value you can add to it.
Yeah.
And then just a bit on Vidar, so that we have a nice picture of him. He's incredibly strong, second in strength only to Thor. He's also silent up until this point, and he shows up in a few other stories. What was the other? Oh, this is actually pretty important. He collects the scraps of leather from cobblers that they throw away after they've built a shoe or a boot, and he builds himself a boot that he wears to stomp on the lower jaw of Fenrir and then pries open Fenrir's jaw with his hand and then sticks the sword down the throat. Like, he's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any archetypal thoughts about the boot or anything, but it's just interesting that, just so that when we talk about Vidar, because he'll come up again, you sort of have an idea of who he is. And maybe I'll mention a bit about silence. I haven't come to any like conclusions or even like hypotheses about this. I know that silence is a good way to deal with chaos, and we see that in meditation. It's often prescribed as a way to calm down and all that kind of stuff. I also wonder if it's meant to show that while Odin was still alive and well and working, he was silent and not trying to like butt in with his newfangled ideas. That I don't know, just that while he was alive and really hadn't. Okay, now I've caught a thought and I'm just going to run with it for a bit and see where it goes. Good. So while Odin is the king and alive and things are still vibrant, he's silent because he hasn't done anything that would warrant anyone listening to him, really. Yes, he is the son of Odin, but what has he done that gives anyone any reason to listen to his ideas? Because, he hasn't done anything. However, killing the wolf that kills Odin, well, that is something. That's something worth... There's also this idea, and we see this in other stories, of Vidar preparing himself in silence. So it wasn't like he was just quiet and not doing anything. He was preparing himself for the day when he was called upon. That I would say that the ideas that Odin had and the ideas of the culture, they had grown in him and he had absorbed them. And so that when the time came that he had done something great enough to warrant people listening to him, he wasn't going to tear everything down with his crazy, newfangled ideas. He had a solid base and now he could build on that. And that sort of, so I don't know if you have other ideas, comment below, but that's sort of where I've gone with that.
I really like that. That's that draws together up a whole lot of different ideas, right? Obviously, and I personally was just focusing on the idea that he's avenging his father, which I think is something like a duty of all sons to their fathers. I like that you tied it in with the resurrection thing. It's a metaphorical resurrection, even though it's portrayed literally in a lot of other stories and civilizations and whatnot, mythologies. It's a metaphorical resurrection, and I think taking that vengeance is sort of that first step. It's like he honors his father enough to take vengeance for him. And this is like completely a different kind of vengeance, I think, as well, because we sort of saw, Fenrir, he is angry with the gods for having tied him up. Loki is angry with the gods for having tied him up and have an acid drip on him, right? So, I mean, that's vengeance of like resentfulness, right? But this is like your father got killed by something like that strikes to the core. Right, it's something that I think you have to follow through with in order to resurrect your father. You know what I mean? Like without that first step of avenging your father's death, you can't resurrect the ideas. Or if you don't find it worthy enough to avenge your father's death, you don't regard his ideas. Something like that, and. Yeah,
it's an honor thing. You're redeeming your father's honor by killing his killer. And the difference is that Vidar isn't resentful of existence and being itself. It's if anything, he's actually, in love with it and wants to make sure that this wolf of disorder can't go any further and redeem the honor of his father. So there's redemption there.
Well, and I like that again. It's a bit of duty as well. Like, I mean, Fenrir still darn well, he's still a threat here. Like, it's not like he's being taken care of. And even though Odin might have, done what was necessary to make sure Fenrir couldn't go any further, as long as someone came in and finished him off, it's still the fact that he finished him off. It's like, yeah, that preparation for that duty. I think duty is absolutely something to realize. It's a part of preserving and honoring your culture, that you have a duty to that. You have a duty to preserve it, to, culture, your family, your community, your country, whatever, humanity in general. Yeah, I mean, Fenrir is an existential threat, not just to one kind of group. It's like metaphorically, existentially, Fenrir is a threat. And Vidar does what is necessary, does the duty that I'm sure he was being prepared for his entire life. Like, not, I would figure he was not going about this on his own accord, like, oh, just in case I come up against Fenrir, I'll be ready for him. No, I'm sure, based on, you have to come back to, this is like, Odin is learning all this that's going to happen, and then he's like, okay, Vidar, like, you're going to have to take care of this after I'm gone. Like, I'm sure he had that weight on him, and the weight of responsibility is absolutely unbearable sometimes, but being able to channel that and do what is necessary is, I think, the ultimate way to continue on, right? Like, no, I think I'm just adding a little bit here. I think you really got this stanza down. That's some great ideas about Vidar.
And just to build on what you were just saying, you wouldn't name your child Wide Ruler if you weren't preparing him for just this type of thing. So they just really got the names right and the story right and how things are supposed to go, at least for them.